Once upon a time, in a small town nestled among rolling hills, there lived a young girl named Janet. She was a bright, curious child who loved nothing more than exploring the world around her. But there was one person who always seemed to get in her way: her mother. Janet's mother was a strict, no-nonsense woman who believed in traditional gender roles and strict discipline. She had always favored Janet's brother over her, and Janet knew it. Whenever her father would try to step in and give her some credit, her mother would shut him down with a glare. For years, Janet and her mother had been like cat and rat in the house, constantly at odds with each other. Janet felt like she could never do anything right in her mother's eyes, and her mother felt like Janet was constantly trying to undermine her authority. It was a miserable existence, but Janet didn't know how to escape it. One day, Janet's school teacher pulled her aside after class. "Janet, I've been watching you for a while now," the teacher said, "and I can see that you're struggling. You're a smart girl, but you're not living up to your potential. What's going on?" Janet hesitated for a moment, unsure of how much to reveal, but something about the teacher's kind eyes made her feel safe. "It's my mother," she finally admitted. "She always favors my brother over me, and it makes me feel like I'm not good enough." The teacher nodded sympathetically. "I see. Well, let me tell you a story. Once, there was a wise sage who lived in the mountains. People would come from miles around to seek his advice because he was known to be wise. One day, a man came to the sage and said, "I have an enemy who has done me great harm. I cannot forgive him, and I cannot forget what he has done. What should I do?" The sage thought for a moment, then handed the man a piece of paper and a pen. "Write down your enemy's name," he said. The man did so. "Now fold up the paper and put it in your pocket. Carry it with you everywhere you go, and every time you feel angry or resentful towards your enemy, take it out and look at his name." The man did as he was told, and soon he found that he was constantly thinking about his enemy. His thoughts consumed him, and he could no longer focus on anything else. Eventually, he returned to the sage and begged him for help. "Give me the paper," the sage said. The man handed it over eagerly. The sage took the paper, tore it into tiny pieces, and threw it into the wind. "Your enemy no longer exists," he said. "He is nothing more than a memory. Let go of him, and you will find peace." Janet listened to the story with rapt attention. "But what does that have to do with me and my mother?" she asked. The teacher smiled. "Your mother is like that piece of paper in your pocket. She is consuming your thoughts and your energy, and you cannot let go of her. But the truth is, your mother is just a person. She is flawed and imperfect, just like everyone else. You cannot change her, but you can change how you react to her. You can choose to let go of your anger and resentment and focus on living your life." Janet thought about this for a moment, then nodded. "I see what you mean," she said. "But it's not that simple. My mother is always there, always in my face. How can I let go of her?" The teacher and Janet walked to school with her head down, dreading the day ahead. Her mother had once again belittled her in front of her dad, claiming that Janet always took her dad's side and never appreciated all the hard work her mother put in to keep the household running smoothly. Janet loved her mother, but she couldn't help feeling like her mother was constantly looking for a reason to put her down. When she arrived at school, she tried to focus on her studies, but it was difficult with the constant negative thoughts swirling in her head. Days passed by. This time, her school teacher couldn't help Janet's attitude. She noticed Janet's lack of focus and pulled her aside after class. "Is everything okay, Janet?" Mrs. Johnson asked kindly. Janet shrugged. "I don't know. My mom and I are constantly arguing lately. She thinks I don't appreciate her, but I do. It's just that I don't always agree with her." Mrs. Johnson nodded understandingly. "It's tough when parents don't see eye to eye, but it's important to remember that they love you and want what's best for you. Maybe you could try talking to your mom and explaining how you feel." Janet sighed. "I've tried, but it never seems to work. She always thinks I'm taking my dad's side, and then we just end up arguing more." Mrs. Johnson thought for a moment. "Well, sometimes it helps to have a different perspective. Maybe you could talk to someone outside the family, like a wise sage. They might be able to offer some guidance that your parents can't." Janet was skeptical. "A wise sage? Where am I supposed to find one of those?" Mrs. Johnson smiled. "They can be found in all sorts of places. Occasionally they're disguised as ordinary people, but if you keep an open mind, you might just find one when you least expect it." Janet wasn't sure if she believed in the idea of a wise sage, but she decided to keep an open mind. As the days went on, she tried to focus on her studies and avoid arguments with her mother, but it was difficult. One day, as she was walking home from school, she noticed an old woman sitting on a bench in the park. Something about her demeanor seemed wise and peaceful, so Janet decided to approach her. "Excuse me," she said tentatively. "I was wondering if you could help me with something." The old woman smiled warmly. "Of course, my dear. What can I do for you?" Janet hesitated, unsure of how to phrase her question. "I'm having trouble with my mom. We're always arguing, and I don't know what to do." The old woman nodded sympathetically. "I see. Well, sometimes when we're in conflict with others, it's because we're not fully agreeing with ourselves. We're reacting to their behavior instead of being proactive and true to our values." Janet listened intently, fascinated by the old woman's words. "What do you mean?" The old woman chuckled. "I mean that sometimes we get so caught up in other people's opinions and expectations that we forget who we are and what we believe in. When that happens, it's easy to get defensive and argumentative because we're not grounded in our sense of self." Janet thought about this for a moment. "So you're saying that if I focus on being true to myself, I won't argue with my mom as much?" The old woman nodded. "Exactly. It's not about winning or losing arguments. It's about staying true to your values and beliefs. When you do that, the arguments will lose their power over you." Janet thanked the old. After a few weeks, Janet's mother noticed a significant change in her daughter's behavior. She was more attentive, respectful, and cooperative. Janet's mother was pleased with the progress and decided to reward her daughter by taking her out for a treat. While they were out, they ran into Janet's school teacher. The teacher was surprised to see the two of them together, and even more shocked to see Janet's behavior towards her mother. She had always known Janet to be disrespectful and disobedient. Janet's mother told the teacher about the wise sage and how he had helped them resolve their conflicts. The teacher was intrigued and asked Janet's mother for the sage's contact information. She wanted to meet him and learn from him. Over the coming weeks, the wise sage received several visits from Janet's mother and the school teacher. He taught them about the dangers of enemy-centered thinking and the importance of taking control of their lives. As for Janet, she continued to improve in her behavior and attitude towards her mother. She realized that her father was not perfect and that her mother deserved more credit for all that she did for the family. In the end, Janet's family became stronger, and her relationships with her mother and teacher improved significantly. She learned a valuable lesson about the importance of forgiveness, empathy, and taking control of one's life. And she knew that whenever she found herself struggling with a difficult situation, she could always turn to the wise sage for guidance and support. The moral of the story is that enemy-centered thinking can be a destructive force that negatively impacts our lives and relationships. It's essential to take control of our thoughts and emotions and not allow someone else's behavior or attitudes to dictate how we live our lives. We must learn to forgive, empathize, and focus on proactively leading our lives rather than reacting to the actions of perceived enemies. By doing so, we can build stronger relationships with our loved ones and experience greater happiness and fulfillment in life. The end. Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos like this from this channel. We love